Welcome to the No Fear podcast and the No Fear live broadcast. I'm your host, Tony Lauer. If you're into mindset training, performance psychology, personal development, you'll dig this new format. No Fear Live is a unique broadcast, and it's different from the No Fear podcast. We decided to go live because we wanted to create the opportunity to interact with people like you all over the world, where anyone can log in and ask questions, and in some cases, you may even get invited into the show. The great thing about the live broadcast is that it's much more personal for the listener. That's you. Remember, self-defense isn't always about a confrontation with someone else. The first and most important fight is winning the one inside your head. All right, Robert Ingram, welcome to the No Fear Live podcast.
What's up, man? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I always love talking shop.
Yeah. Dude, like I've been a fan of yours for many, many years. And, you know, when we first started promoting this, it was like who's going to know who Robert Ingram is? Like when do people recognize you and go, hey, McDojoLife, like they, you know, but they don't know your name, right? Or I don't know what's that like? Because you're so famous for that.
It's weird because like people will either call me McDojoLife or they'll call me Rob, because I go by Rob on pretty much every YouTube video. I open it with the same thing. Hey guys, Rob here with McDojoLife. And it's weird depending where you are. Like I actually have a funny story about that. The first time I remember really being stopped like that for someone recognizing me was at a urinal in a country bar. So like I'm at the urinal, I'm doing my thing, and I felt like eyes on me. And I like looked over and there was a dude just staring at me. I was like, yo, man, maybe keep your eyes on your own paper. And, you know, and like, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I actually recognize you from your page. I was like, oh, thank you. And like, we're both midstream. Like, we're just having a conversation. And I went to go leave, but the guy was really intoxicated. And he was like, hey, man, will you do me a favor? Can we take a picture? And I was like, well, yeah, like not right now, like, you know, like, let's finish. And so like somewhere in the world, there's a selfie of me and this drunk dude. I think I was also probably drunk, taking a selfie in this men's bathroom in some random country bar. So it happens, you know.
That's a good backstory, man, for the picture of you with the man in the urinal. No, that's amazing. I've had where people can't remember the name and they see me and they go spear guy, and they're like, I'm like you know, it's just it's so bizarre. And I thought about that because your page has grown so much. And I think one of the interesting things, and I you know, we were talking offline earlier, most of the audience that follows me has been in martial arts, law enforcement, military for years. There's no way that they haven't heard of you. I mean, Rogan talks about you. You've got from, you know, Kelly Slater to like everybody's on your page commenting. So a couple of things. One is, did you ever imagine it would grow to this size and have that type of eclectic audience?
No, I did it kind of like as a hobby at first, like, and I didn't do it the way I do it now. That's evolved a lot because you learn and you grow and you try to make sure you adapt with the way things are moving. But when I first started doing it, it was long form essays on Facebook. So there would be no photo. There'd usually be no picture. It would just be like these theses on why this particular studio was either lying or they got caught, or there was some news article that people needed to know about in terms of the instructor doing something nefarious with kids or doing something nefarious with their female students, things like that. And I would just like rip into people. And I did that for a long time. And then out of nowhere one day, I was like, man, I don't have time to do this today. Because I was like an everyday thing. Get on there. I already had a list of people I needed to get after. So I just go down, and one day I didn't have the time. So I tossed on some share video of like something. It was goofy. I don't remember what it was, but I just put a video up there. And it got more likes, more shares, more comments than anything else I had posted. And I was like, well, maybe I need to change the way I do this. And so that paying attention to what was working and what was getting attention is how I'm able to get more eyes on the important things. So if I do a video about, like, let's say a no-touch knockout guy, which is hilarious because obviously you can't do that. Right. But if I post that video, people will engage and they'll talk and they'll chat. But then no one will want to engage in talking chat about, like, if I call out, let's say, someone who's a registered sex offender. Well, that's the more important thing.
Right.
Like, that is the thing we should be talking about more and exposing. So I found that, like, if you get a consistent, like, this is funny, this is funny, this is funny, hey, this guy did something crazy, people will pay it attention, even if they don't interact with it as much. I can see that they're seeing it. And that's kind of the battle of calling out those kind of people.
So what's interesting is about halfway through that rant, you described the strategy for success at life. Pay attention to what's working, right? It's just like as a philosophy for, relationships, family, business, anything. So those of you looking for a little subtext and a little nuance there, that's a good strategy. You went in a different direction, from, I never knew about the Facebook and the thesis, statements, the long form, and then the short form. And then of course going, okay, people don't want to like be depressed, like, pedophile, rapist, pedophile. Let's have humor. Hey, something serious, maybe through osmosis and little Chinese water torture. Can I say Chinese water torture without getting? Probably not. I can't.
I mean, I don't know. You can say what you please, man.
But the idea is like, and it was interesting when you said that. It was like, why would everybody want to make fun of something ridiculous, but then not have that same emotional, psychological investment in something like tragic and serious, like a rape or a the pedophile or whatever? Do you have any like deep thoughts on that?
Well, I know my personal experience dealing with this. I've been doing McDojoLife now for 11 years, and there was definitely a period in the middle somewhere where about 2 years, I truly was being affected mentally by it. If all you're seeing is all the negatives, it's really hard to see the positive. Correct. And I don't think people want to feel that way. I think people want to laugh. They want to blow off steam, but it's very difficult to actually solve a problem like that in the industry. So it's easier for people to just make fun of something and move on with life than it is to actually dig into the roots of the problem. And the roots of the problem really are that, which is people do not want to solve those issues. They will say it all the time, but they'll also contradict themselves. So just as an example, people will wear a t-shirt that says kill all pedophiles. I've seen it all the time, right? You'll have these hoorah types, kill all pedophiles. They'll wear it. They'll put the bumper sticker on their car. But then when a woman does it to a little boy, they're proud of the little boy, which is a direct conflict to the thing that they were just talking about. It contradicts their whole message. Kill all pedophiles, unless, like, there is no unless, in my opinion, but people cannot separate. And that in itself is one of the major issues of why it continues, is because you're still able to justify it somehow in your mind. There is no justifying it. It is a child. That person cannot consent. That person was taken advantage of. They should be called out, whether they're a woman or a man or whatever they identify as. I don't care. But if they did that to a child, they deserve to be called out on it. And we should not praise one and then try to say you're going to kill the other. At that point, you're just a hypocrite.
Interesting. Heavy and provocative, because I can see how people can rationalize gray area, because you got the, how many movies have the hot teacher in college and the, the younger, all the boys want to get seduced. In fact, there was a shit. I had no idea we were going to talk about this, but I just saw a viral video, like all in black and white. So it's like, from the 60s type thing, where they had really good looking posing as teachers come in and talk to a bunch of students, and then kept the camera on them when the teacher walked out, and the girls freaked out at the gorgeous guy. And
I do remember that. I did see it.
There's reason. But so there's a part of that. The gray area is like, and I'm just, again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. The gray area is, there are these impulses, and for it to fall under that, I'm going to really shoot myself in the foot here.
It's a hard subject to talk about. It's not easy. It's difficult.
So you have, if you're a 15 or 16-year-old boy and your teacher is hot, you're like, oh my God, the teacher. And if something happened there that, like someone goes, no, that's absolutely pedophilia, versus a lot of the stuff we talk about, like, I don't know if I can say Epstein's Island online. I just screwed up my YouTube.
Well, the list just got released, so that's an
Right.
interesting thing too.
But it's the list they want us to see because everything's a charade, right? So
I mean, it's a list. There are
yeah,
names.
yeah,
So it's a start.
there's some serious names on that, but it's a crazy thing. Like that, to me, is that criminal enterprise where it was nefarious. There were for all intents and purposes, like kidnapping and restraint and shit like that. And I guess what I'm talking about, or what your thoughts are, because there are so many movies of that. The older, and going back to the school teacher, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about here. And that, I don't know if you know where I'm going on this.
I think what you're talking about is the gray area between whether or not it's the same when we view a male doing it to a female child or a female doing it to a male child. And the truth is, absolutely it is. If you look at a company like, actually, you can go on RAINN, RAINN.org, and it keeps statistics for things like that, not only rape, but also pedophilia. And when you start looking into the statistics, the only real difference is it does affect both. It affects them for a lifetime, this child. And really, when we talk about child, we're discussing the age of consent. But anything under that age of consent is considered a child. And that particular child cannot give consent. That's the whole point of the law. And so I think that in order for us to be able to combat this type of issue, we have to treat both male and female the exact same way when they are breaking that law. And the problem is there are so many people who find a gray area in there and try to justify it. And just to touch on this one more time, and then I'll leave it be, because I understand it's a tricky one to talk about, especially when we're live. But I did a story about a female martial arts instructor who had molested a young boy in her class. Now, the female was in her 30s. The young boy was roughly about 14 years old. And of course, you make the story and you have all the adults, I wish that was me, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Those people are horrible human beings, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Other people can view them how they please. But of course, when you're a child, you have impulses. When you're 5, all you want to do is eat candy all day. That doesn't mean that we allow you because that's how you feel at the time.
Right.
Like, there's right and wrong, and it's a difficult thing for a child to discern. But when I did that story, there was a guy who was so devout about that being okay that he literally made a post with him standing next to his 12-year-old child and was asking people of that age and that sex to do that to his child.
Holy shit.
Asking for them to do it. And I was like, okay, so you're literally going online asking for an adult female to molest your child, and you think that's okay by going that far. And again, those are just some of the types of issues that I have to deal with when trying to navigate the martial arts industry, because it in itself is not a regulated industry. So it is a kind of a refuge for a lot of people who have done nefarious things. And then they go, well, I can just start my own martial arts studio and no one's going to ever check on me. And there's no standard. So I'll just start. And that's a problem.
And there's no standards in terms of like understanding proper learning strategies, psychologies, from you having a background check, right?
Yeah.
Like how were you raised and what are your beliefs? And then of course the obvious one is like, like the guy who's got like 900, the guy you featured who's got 22, black belts and stuff. Yeah. So like he's got to be like 300 years old, and maybe
at this point with those black belts, man, he's had to have been doing it for as long as Steven Seagal or something like that.
Right. This would probably be a great time to play and let's set this up properly. And those of you who logged in and saw, okay, who's this Robert Ingram? Oh, McDojoLife. Oh, fuck, I love McDojoLife. And because there's some, great videos in there that, give you 2 or 3 minutes of massive laughter and head scratching. What the fuck are they thinking? And then we kind of went really dark right away. And I don't want to. Yeah, but it's so important because it's also what's going on in the world right now. The whole this last 3 years with our administration and with the island and all of it, it's all part of that. It's all connected in some way. There's something massively wrong with how we think and how we control our mindset and how we rationalize shit. There's a quote that I love using from Robert Feynman, who said the first principle is to never fool yourself. And remember, you're always the easiest person to fool. And what he's talking about is the rational lie we tell ourselves is why something's okay. And rationalize, I love, the spelling with the hyphen between rational and lie. But set up the trailer for a sec so people understand, what you're trying to do, and then we'll play it.
Well, like we discussed, there is no checks and balances in the martial arts industry. So really wanted to create a piece of art with the documentary that will give people a start if they want to get into the martial arts industry. It'll give them something to look at so that way they can navigate something as complicated as martial arts. I mean, how many different names are there for instructor? You have Sifu, you have professor, you have coach, sensei, and the list goes on, right? If someone who's never done martial arts before, that could be very confusing and a lot to navigate. It's a lot to learn. So we were hoping that we can show some of these red flags to look for and show these martial arts cults. So that way there's a standard of some type in the industry set, so we can start a major dialogue and conversation about how to keep martial arts as legitimate as possible. And by that, I don't always just mean people being able to fight each other. Right. I don't think that that's the only standard of what a martial artist is. I mean, we've all watched John Wick, and that's run by the 8711 stunt team guys. A lot of those guys are sport karate guys, and they don't want to be fighters at all. But then again, they don't lie about that. And that's the honesty that we need and the integrity in the industry, I think, that's needed to maintain legitimate martial arts, hopefully for the next 1,000 years, maybe longer. But there has to be a standard. And so hopefully that's what we're creating.
There's also, I mean, the trailer's very provocative. And I say this respectfully, it's almost like the beginning of a horror movie, right? This is the dark side of the industry. But it's very well done, and it's needed. I was going to ask you something, but I want to show the video, and then I'm going to ask you that as soon as we do that. Lisa, sure. Play the documentary, the trailer, please. Or don't. We'll just
see what would be happening right now if one was playing. It would look kind of like this. Right.
I'd be doing this.
Yeah, and then there'd be a camera angle. Right. Oh, maybe.
Guys are experiencing some technical difficulties.
See, what we wanted to do was we wanted to open the trailer with a black screen for roughly about 5 minutes or so. It really throws people off. Right. They don't see that coming.
It's a whole ninja motif where there we go. There we go.
My next guest is so dangerous, everybody, that we have a paramedic standing by. He can actually put you out without even touching you.
My name is Robert Ingram. I run a webpage called McDojoLife.
McDojoLife is an awesome collection of the fakest martial arts you've ever seen in your life.
Projecting energy can actually knock somebody out.
A McDojo is a fake or fraudulent martial arts school with the intent of doing something nefarious with the students other than just teaching them martial arts.
And what's stunning about McDojoLife is how many of them there are.
I'm still in custody in a state hospital, and I still have followers out there that would see me doing the psychic powers with martial arts, and they wanted to be associated with that school.
There was times that he told my mom and I that his students viewed him as a god.
People have been seriously hurt, killed, taken advantage of financially, lost families, molested.
The red flags started happening when I would start having conversations with some of the other women, and she confided in me that he had raped her.
The number of pedophiles in the martial arts industry is astonishing. Well, why doesn't anybody do anything about that? Wish me luck that this guy picks up right off the bat. We have a gentleman who's going to come in and teach us the pressure point and no touch knockout stuff.
Raise a hand, how many of you actually have any experience with martial arts?
And I have gathered 10 different martial artists, but we're not going to just go along with it.
Yeah, don't record this, guys.
Yo, you rolling right now? You rolling?
Wild. Good job, man. Good editing, and you definitely want to see more. So my question for you is this. We're going back to Facebook time. What happened in your life, or what did you see, or what conversation did you have that you went, fuck this, I'm going after these guys? Because this is not like casual for you. This is a big part of your life.
Yeah, this is what I do. Luckily I can make a living doing it now, but it took a while to get to there. But it was actually a casual conversation. It was the strangest thing. I actually write about this in my book a little bit, but I was there and I was a striking coach for the jiu-jitsu program that I was at the time. I was also the kids program director. And at that time I was just a regular program director. So I had input contracts and stuff like that. So that day I was working the desk and my instructor called me and he goes, "Hey man, I'm sick. I'm not going to be able to make it. Would you do me a favor and fill in and teach class for me?" Which if you ever met that instructor, he does not get sick. The man's a machine, but he was sick that day and it just happened to change my life. So I taught the class. We were working on just some basic stuff out of the guard, triangle choke arm bar variations and how to work between, sparred a little bit. And then it was a noon class. So a lot of people just left to go back to work, but the ones who didn't, we'd stay around and chit chat because you don't have another class for like hours, right? Sure. So we'll stand around and we'll shoot the shit. And as we were talking, there was a guy there, and it was his first official class as a member. He had done a trial class before, and now he's officially suited up. He's a member of our program. And we got on the subject with other people there about McDojos. And everyone left after that because McDojo has been a term around since I was a kid, before I even started martial arts. But everyone left except for that guy. And he kind of stayed back and was like, "Hey, man, I'm a little embarrassed. I didn't want to say this in front of everybody, but I don't know what a McDojo is. I heard y'all talk about it for a while. Could you maybe explain it to me?" So I kind of explained it to him a little bit about what that was. And he just asked me a very basic question. "Why doesn't anyone do anything about that?" And I was like, man, at that time I'd been training for a really long time. And I thought about it and I was like, I really have no answer for you. And when you don't know an answer, well, what you do is you go research and find it. So instead of lying, I just went to go like, "Oh, well, this is why. I don't fucking know. I've been doing this for a long time. I have no clue." And at the time, the only thing I could really find that was out there was like Bullshido forums, which is a big deal back in the day. And I had started looking into it, but I noticed that there was no one actually trying to solve the problem. Everyone was complaining, and everyone was starting to complain about things that actually didn't matter. They would complain about things that were more like guidelines than rules. So in order to fix something, step one is you need to know there's a problem. And step two, you need to define it. Like, okay, this is a problem. Well, what exactly is it about that is a problem? Well, I had to redefine what most people were considering a McDojo, because the standard of what people call that is not realistic. They'll go, "Oh, well, they just give away black belts." How do you know that? Or do you train there? Like, what is your standard for just giving it away? Well, they're not very good. Okay, well, a lot of people aren't going to be as good as other people, so that can't necessarily be your standard. Well, they give it away in like 2-3 years. Well, BJ Penn got his black belt in 3 years. Are we going to say that he's illegitimate? So you keep going down these rabbit holes of like question, answer. And I was able to finally narrow it down up to this point to 5 standard things that would create that atmosphere. And I've seen lists like 100 ways you know you're in a McDojo, and like, oh, they have standardized uniforms. Like, who gives a shit? Every football team does too. You saying that the team that wins the Super Bowl this year is not legitimate because they all wore the same uniform? Right. Like, it doesn't make logical sense. So the 5 rules started to become a thing, and I started just going down that path of figuring out, are there more rules here that I'm missing, or do these always hold up? And so far in the last 11 years, they've held up.
Can you list them? Do you know?
Yeah, for sure. Step one, I've always said, was pedophiles first, because that's usually very shocking and it gets people's attention. And there's an astronomical amount of pedophiles in the industry, but really it's just sex offenders in general. If somebody has committed some type of a sexually related crime, maybe we shouldn't put them in positions of power over other people.
Right.
But I think that would be step one. Rule number 2 is lying about your belt rank or your fight record. You could literally open up a martial arts studio today as a white belt who has never trained before in your life, and that would be okay. As long as you were honest with the people who walked up to you. If somebody walked up to you and they say, hey, how long have you been training? Oh, I don't train, but you run a martial arts studio. That's right. Well, have you ever fought? Not really. I'm a pacifist. Like, okay, so like you have no training, you have no idea what you're doing. Nope, I have no clue. Do you want to sign up? Then people would just say no.
Right.
But that's not what people do. The first conversation you usually have with your instructor is either how much does it cost or what's your history? Tell me about what makes you qualified to do this. Well, if they're going to lie to you in the very first conversation they have, they'll probably lie about everything else.
Right.
It's the martial arts version of stolen valor, really. So that's number 2. Number 3 is shady business practices. So if someone tells you, hey, man, you're going to have to do belt testing every week. It's going to cost you $1,000 every belt test. Every time you move up a program, we have 15 different programs that we have, each one requiring new gear and new uniforms. Also, you're going to have to pay for A, B, and C, and X, Y, Z, and all these other things. And they tell you that up front. That's fine. You as a consumer are now making an informed, educated decision about the product or service you're purchasing. Nothing wrong with that. If you can afford that and that's what makes you happy, go for it. But if they lie to you, and next thing you know, there's this extra fee or this hidden fee or some type of something where they financially rip you off, not only is that probably illegal, but also it puts you in a position that you were not aware that you were about to sign up for. That's shady. Even in town, we had a famous story in Jacksonville about a guy who actually went door to door, strong arming, literally threatening to beat up his students if they didn't pay on time. I would consider that a shady business practice, so that's number 3. Rule number 4 is unsafe training practices or cult-like behavior. Obviously, there is a certain amount of risk in martial arts, but there's a certain amount that is avoidable or downright not beneficial. For instance, let's say I see a lot of this in the Middle East, where an instructor will have their students stand there, put their hands behind their back, while the instructor will just tee off on their head. That's an unsafe training practice. It doesn't benefit you if you do it. It only harms you. And if you don't do it, it's not going to take away from your training. So that's an unsafe training practice, or even worse, abuse in terms of like beating up students who don't do what they're told, hitting students with sticks when they don't do what they're told. How does that benefit them? That doesn't. It only harms them. That's an unsafe training practice that will only lead to harm. Even something as simple as cleaning your damn dojo. How many people have gotten seriously injured because of staph infection because somebody just didn't decide to put a mop to the floor every once in a while?
Right.
That's an unsafe training practice. And of course, the cult-like behavior goes with that because that's also unsafe. But getting your students to comply with things that they normally in their right mind probably wouldn't do. And not to rip into, since I'm talking about this, I'm going to talk about every art. But one of the more popular ones that people will accept as okay is like the gauntlet in jiu-jitsu. People for some reason think that this is sane, where they'll take off their belts, they'll make a line of people, and then someone got a belt promotion, and they'll walk down that line of people while they're getting whipped with belts. If you do it, does it make you better at jiu-jitsu or martial arts? No. If you don't do it, does it make you worse at martial arts? No. So why do you do it? The only reason you do it is because someone convinced you that you should do it. That's it. And you might think that it's okay. You might even argue that it's okay. But put that same scenario in like work. Hey, Steve got a promotion. What's up, Steve? Hey, everybody, give Steve a round of applause. Let's all take off our belts. Let's make a line. All right. And when Steve walks by, I want you to whip the shit out of him. Okay. Would Steve think that that's sane? No. And then HR would get involved. Right. So like, that's not smart, but like people are convinced that's a cult-like behavior, right? Yeah. Convincing people to do something that's not beneficial and doesn't help them. You're just following, and that's strange. And then the final one is one that you'll see a lot on the page, which is mislabeling technique and no-touch knockout. Mislabeling technique is not the same as teaching a shitty technique. Not everybody's going to be as good as someone else. If I go to a seminar with a 3-stripe blue belt and he teaches me a technique, that might work. If I go to a Gordon Ryan Jiu-Jitsu seminar, he might need to teach me how to do that better or more efficient. That doesn't mean that the other one doesn't work. It just means maybe there's a better way to do it. Both viable. But if someone goes to a cardio kickboxing class, for instance, and the cardio kickboxing instructor says, all right, guys, I'm going to make you world-class kickboxers. Are we going to spar? There's no sparring here. Are we going to hit mitts? There's no hitting mitts here. Am I going to learn any technique? Nope. We're just going to hit this bag and you're going to lose calories. That's mislabeling. You're lying to your students, giving them a false sense of security. That is not correct. And of course, the no-touch knockout stuff is obviously insane, but it happens all over the world in different names. You have people who believe in ki projection or chi projection, where you can move your hands like a George Dillman and knock people out without touching them. Or you have Indonesia, which has Tenaga Dalam, which believes that they can do the exact same thing. They just call it something different under a more religious practice. Then you have people who believe in the Holy Spirit. Hey, I wave my hand and now you all get knocked back. They're all the same thing, just used to manipulate people in different ways. So currently, those are the 5 rules of the page, and that's what I try to stick to.
Yeah, that's I was glad that you were able to go into it in detail. As I asked the question, I was like, oh fuck, like where's this going to go? And it's definitely, these are all parts of your book. Like are there elements of that?
Funny enough, the book is about like my life as a teenager fighting in bars when I was 15.
Okay, I didn't know if there will stick that there, a little non sequitur segue into the book, but I want to come back real quick. We'll talk about the book. I didn't know if that would be like a chapter in the book or a part, in there talking about that. But let's come back to the book and go deeper into it in a second, because I want to, for anybody in my audience who doesn't know Robert's background and just see him as he's a curator of McDojoLife, he's a lifelong martial artist as well. And this will segue nicely into the book. Just reading from here: 3rd degree black belt in karate, 3rd degree black belt in, how do you pronounce that? Lissa-jous-Do?
Yeah, it's a Lissa-jous-Do. It's a weapon system based off a French physicist. It's basically just means I'm good at nunchucks, which is a fairly useless skill. And I don't walk around with nunchucks on me all the time. So It was just fun to learn. It really helped my jiu-jitsu. Crazy enough.
Purple belt in jiu-jitsu, but also interesting is amateur boxer, kickboxer, 6-0 record as a boxer, 4-2 amateur kickboxer. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, I mean, anybody like the metaphoric example you gave, where I go, hey, like I've never trained, but I want to open up a school. I'm a white belt. I've never fought. I've never done a kata. I don't know anything. And someone goes, well, okay, that sounds good. I'll sign up. Or they go, well, why the hell would I pay you if you don't know anything? But at that point, it's informed. So I just wanted to say, like, when Robert made this list of 5 and has these opinions, he also has them as after decades of getting punched in the face, punching people in the face, doing martial arts, being around there. So there's a lot of
my modeling career.
Right. So you've earned the right to an opinion. Let's talk about the McDojo stuff. And it's interesting. I made a note here. Of course, we were told by the media there's no such thing as mass formation psychosis. A few years ago, you've heard the term, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. So while you were describing all of these people that would, that follow the Kool-Aid leader, going, drink this Kool-Aid, what does that say about most people? Like that, like when you and I watch a no touch, and just move your head to the side, because when I don't want you to get hit directly with that.
I gotta get hit the other way.
Yeah. I just don't want you to get. I just gave you a bit of the flu there. I didn't hit you directly.
You hit me with the different kind of chi.
Right, but it was really funny because I do in the spear system. I do this finger splayed demo, and it looks like the Aikido chi demo, right? But what I do is I break it down, and there's always somebody who's done Aikido. So we do this finger splayed, hands closed, up and closed. You figure 4 over the arm, and when your fingers are splayed, and you're like it's 50 times stronger. And there's always somebody in the class that goes, yeah, the unbendable arm. That's the term they call it in Aikido. And I go, who said unbendable arm? Yeah, I did. You did some Aikido. Yeah. Who's heard about it? A bunch of people. They say, yeah, I heard about it. What do they attribute that to? And they always say ki or chi, like that life force energy. And the guy that I'm usually dealing with, because a lot of my seminars are for like law enforcement, military, so that people don't have a strong martial art background, I'll go, do you know what Ki or Chi is? And he goes, no, I have no idea. And I go, well, if he has no idea what it is, it can't fucking be that, right? Because he doesn't know what it is. And so I break it down into like the biomechanics and the relationship between kinesiology, muscle recruitment, the extensor chain versus the flexor chain, and why when your fingers are splayed, you're engaging and recruiting more muscles, and that's why your elbow doesn't bend. And I go, we need to stop mystifying shit that isn't magic. It's fucking understanding how the body moves. But my point being here, and then tossing the mic back to you here, is when one of the things that I watch when you post something and there's 50 people clapping and watching some guy go, and 10 of his black belts are flying across the room. Like, I'm going, what are these 50 people doing in the room? Why are they still there going? And so my question for you is, have you thought deeply, or, just like the big picture, what's wrong with most people in the world, with respect to how easily they can be brainwashed or led to this type of, behavior?
Well, I was talking about this at lunch, literally like an hour ago. So I'm glad that you brought it up. And I have an opinion that might not be the standard of what people think. If you really start looking into cults, you look at guys like Jim Jones, you look at guys like David Koresh, you look at guys like, hell, even the Mother God cult, which I don't know if you've seen that documentary, but good Lord. If you look at those people, not all of them are just so easily manipulated. I think what we need to do as a society is kind of understand that how to manipulate is becoming more evolved too, and that we're all susceptible to being manipulated by anyone at any given moment. There's been times where any of us have been manipulated. If you've ever had someone lie to you and you believe them, you were manipulated. Right. So, but most people don't think they could ever fall victim of a cult or a cult leader, and that's where it gets fun. Because that is the open door of manipulation. If you yourself don't believe that you could be taken advantage of, you don't have your guard up. Your guard's down. If I'm sparring with a white belt and I'm not worried that we're moving around, I'm like, this guy can't touch me, I'm going to be lazy. And that's when you get caught, because you put your guard down. And if you look at a very famous documentary on Netflix called Wild Wild Country, that particular cult was made up of doctors and lawyers and architects. These were not dumb people. These were highly intelligent people. And what we should be looking at is the mechanisms and tools in order to manipulate have been evolving as well. So people are learning from the ones who came before them. That's literally what the word sensei means, the one who came before. Well, in these cults, these cult leaders are learning from people who came before them. Jim Jones, as an example, everybody knows the Kool-Aid story, right? Jim Jones, as a child, revered Adolf Hitler. He thought Adolf Hitler was the man. Why did he do that? Not necessarily just because of his political views, but he also believed those as well. But his public speaking is what he was looking into. So as a child, Jim Jones would go around to each one of the churches in his area and listen to the preachers preach, no matter what their religious denomination. And he would watch what would work and what wouldn't. In comedy, they call that taking class. Just sitting down and what works, what's making this audience do what I need them to do. But he was doing it from a position of trying to figure out how to do that to people himself. So he would go into the woods, open up a Bible, and preach to nothing. He'd practice as a child in the woods, then eventually becomes one of the forerunners for civil rights movement. He goes in, the majority of his congregation were African American. He winds up taking his congregation after church sermons were done. He'd take them to local restaurants that were whites only. Then he would take his mostly black congregation in and say, hey, we have 100 people outside that want to give you money. You could let us in and you can take that money, or we're going to go to the guy next door and I bet you he takes it. And then one restaurant at a time was basically making it so that way everybody was able to go anywhere they wanted. Like, this was in a civil rights movement and he was able to start taking it. So if you look at that, you go, wow, it's really powerful. This guy was doing good. Right. Then he discovered cocaine, and then he discovered the fact that he can manipulate people to have sex with him. And then we get the sunglasses era of Jim Jones, where he's always got those dark sunglasses on. Why? Because he was always high. He was high as a kite all the time. And so he starts taking advantage of people. So I think that the reason I bring that up is because if we look at guys like George Dillman, which is probably one of the most notorious martial arts frauds in the industry, he started off, he was on the cover of Black Belt magazine 3 times. I'm not saying that's an end all be all, but I'm saying at least at some point people were talking about him.
Sure.
He was also a competitor. He was somebody who actually competed at that time. He would go to tournaments. He would actually fight other people. But then somewhere along the line, very similar to Jim Jones, people just stopped questioning him. They started going along with the nonsensical things that he would say, and then they put themselves in a position, well, you know what? If I stick with this, maybe I could be that guy. Maybe if we just go along with it long enough, then when he's done, we can take over. But we have to start all the way over if we go somewhere else. Imagine being in a religion for 30 years of your life just to discover that you were wrong. Well, now you have cognitive dissonance. I have to make a decision. There's a fork in the road in my thought processes. Do I continue to believe the lie, which is much healthier, much easier, or not healthier, but it's much easier for me to do? I don't have to give up my friends. I don't have to give up my social structure. I don't have to give up my status in this organization, which I might have worked my way up by that time. I can just continue with the lie. And maybe I'm delusional enough to believe it. Or do I turn my entire world upside down to go after the truth? Most people will not go after the truth. Most people are happy to live in the lie. And that's where we are with this type of thing. And also there's a high level of manipulation. One last thing on the subject, and then I'll toss it back. I interviewed a guy who actually was going to a seminar George Dillman was teaching at. He got called up with one of the instructors, and the instructor was like, I'm going to hit you in gallbladder 52 and spleen 9. Obviously, I don't know the damn charts, but he's like, I'm going to hit you in these pressure points on your back, and it's going to knock you unconscious. And this is on video, by the way. That's why the guy contacted me, because I shared it. And he explained to me that to the audience, he was telling them that he was going to hit these pressure points and it was going to knock the guy unconscious. What really happened was he said this to the audience, but when he went to go do that, his elbow hit the back of the guy's head, and he hit him so hard it actually did knock him to the floor and knock him out a bit. So when he hit him, what he explained to the audience, they're like, oh my God, this worked. And the guy who got hit is like, oh my God, this worked. But it didn't work because of how he said it. That's the manipulation. So it's not, I don't think it's as easy as like people themselves like are changed in any way. I think we're all just as vulnerable mentally as we ever were. I think the difference is that now it's easier for people who are manipulating people to have research on how to do it easier.
Right.
It's not hard.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got to think about it. Like, I agree with a lot of that. There's a part of my brain that, like, I look at these people and I go, there's no way they're that good actors that they're all in on it. Like, it's,
no, they believe it. Some believe it.
Yeah, there's a part of it that just completely believes it. And, you know, and that's the, you know, like, you know, and I hate to say this, I throw that, like, the YouTube algorithm's going to friggin' flag me. The useful idiots, right? Just the people that'll believe anything on TV. You see it once and it just starts. They're predisposed to believe.
Well, I want to add something to this because I think it's important, and it's a question that I ask quite a bit. Do you believe you could be taken advantage of by a cult leader or a con artist?
Me personally?
Yes.
Yeah. I so overthink things that my answer is yes, I believe, but I also believe my intuition, instincts, and intelligence. At some point, alarms would be going off. And it's something that I talk about a lot is I go, like, someone introduces something to you and it's outside your comfort zone, and you will have a physiological response to that. And it'll either be like, I need that, or that scares me, or whatever. But there's a moment of what we call doubt and hesitation. Then depending on how effective that manipulation is, you know, where like they know what the rejection is going to be or the fear is going to be. And it's like, you know, and this goes for the pedophiliac to the Jim Jones to the no, hey, I know you're scared right now, or I know you don't believe me, but just trust me. Like, look, what do you know? And so they start this seduction. my whole thing is my nervous system. It's actually interesting in a conversation that we can have offline or another podcast. I have this whole, in our program, we talk about this true safety model, and it's about leaning into intuition, instincts, and intelligence to further enhance your self-awareness so that you can improve your critical thinking skills. And so there's like a very logical sequence that you go, well, if I apply this to any stimulus that I get, I will begin my research journey. And then I'll go, well, fuck, this makes no sense. So go ahead.
No, so your hard answer is
yes, but.
Yes, but. Okay. So most people that I've spoken with, and obviously this is just based off people I've spoken with, not the entire world. I can't speak for everyone, but most people I personally have spoken with will usually say no.
No. Yeah.
Usually. That's because I think people want to feel like they're more in control of themselves than they really are.
Yeah. And if I want to interject one thing, I say yes because I've been a coach my whole life, like even before I started teaching martial arts and self-defense in 1977. So as a coach, I'm a romantic. I'm also a romantic. I want to believe the best in people. So I've been fucked over and lied to many times. So if I said no, like no one could ever lie to me or con me or manipulate me, that's bullshit, because I've got actual evidence of that happening in my life, in martial arts, as well as in business, because I want to believe in people. And so over the years, I've just developed that system where I go, yeah, I can't trust my hopes and well wishes. I need evidence. I need some facts.
Well, the martial arts industry is a fascinating thing to me because it parallels with religion, and the root word of culture is cult. So our culture is made up of nothing but a bunch of cults anyway. But if we look at the way that the martial arts is structured as compared to religion, it starts to become a lot more eye-opening about how easy it is for people to be manipulated. Because most martial arts studios that I've been doing business consulting with, we don't cold call people. Most martial arts schools don't. They don't just pick up a phone and just start randomly calling people. People call them. So those people already want or are interested in the service that is being provided. They're doing research. They're looking. The next thing is that when you walk into a martial arts studio, the way that it can be compared to Catholicism is almost terrifying if you're looking at it through the eyes of trying to decipher if it's a cult or not. For instance, if you walk in to a Catholic church, sometimes you'll see like a bowl of holy water there. Sometimes not. Every church is a little different, right? So you might walk in and you might dab your finger in and you might, for lack of better words, anoint yourself, right? And then you walk forward. Then you get to the pew and then you'll see people take a knee at the pew and do the same thing. And then they'll sit in the pew, right? Some people don't do that at all. Some people only do the holy water and some people only do the pew. And again, some people don't do any of it. Well, martial arts is very similar. You walk in, some studios require you to bow at the door. Some require you to bow at the mat, and some don't require you to do that at all. So that's very similar in terms of how we get from point A to point B. Then when you look at it, everyone's sitting on one side of the room, and there's one person standing at the front, and they're giving you information. One is supposed to be teaching you about religion, that particular religion, and the other is supposed to be teaching you about self-defense. Very similar. Behind the preacher, you'll see either a statue of Jesus Christ, stained glass of Jesus Christ, or a giant photo of Jesus Christ. In martial arts, a lot of martial arts studios have pictures of the instructors that came before them. And then in religion, you acknowledge a lot about Jesus Christ, at least in Catholicism anyway. And in martial arts, you acknowledge a lot to your instructor. You're giving them a lot of credit for why you're there, right? And in some cases, you even bow to that particular photo as a sign of respect. So these things are almost identical. Even funny enough, in one part in a Catholic mass, you might actually stand up and start shaking each other's hands. Oh, peace be with you. Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Well, you do that in almost every martial arts class when you're done. Hey, man, good game. Hey, nice class. Hey, awesome job, right? It's very similar. I think the only real difference is intent. And it's a couple questions, and you'll automatically know, yes, you can be taken advantage of. It's a very simple line of questions, by the way, if you're willing.
Go for it.
So are you a doctor?
No.
Do you think you'd perform open heart surgery better than a doctor?
Not with the victim living, not with the patient living.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't make it.
Right.
Right. Do you think you perform brain surgery better than a doctor?
No.
Exactly. Right. Do you think you'd know more about medicine than a doctor?
No.
Exactly.
Well, these days I'm not sure, but go on.
Like the actual anatomy and all that good stuff.
Right,
There's a
right,
reason they went specifically to school for that. They obviously would know more about that than us if they're a
Right.
legitimate doctor.
Right.
That's what they do. Are you a mechanic?
No,
So you do better at fixing a car than a certified mechanic?
absolutely not.
Exactly. Are you a lawyer?
Negative.
Would you be better at law than a lawyer?
No, but I play one on Zoom sometimes.
So the answer down these questioning with any profession, I ask you, the answer will be no.
Right.
That person is a professional at their job. They know more about doing that job than we would ever know. Are you a con artist?
No.
Do you think you'd be better at conning people than a con artist?
Well played.
The answer is no. Obviously, we would not. So that means we would not understand the con either. If there was a body on a table and I'm looking at it and they go, "Hey, perform this open heart surgery," I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right.
If I'm standing in front of a lawyer or in front of a judge and the judge says you're doing that wrong, I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
If I open up a car, I'm going to go, I don't know what I'm doing. But if I'm looking at someone conning me, I don't know what I'm doing. They do. That is the point. They are a professional at that job. So if you looked at Jim Jones, it's easy for us from the outside to go, yeah, there's no fucking way. But
now that we know,
imagine you're one of those people that were at the beginning of that.
Yeah.
You went in, you were somebody who was being disenfranchised by your government. You're not even allowed to sit at the table. You're not even allowed in that restaurant. Yet this man comes along and he changes that for you, betters your life. And then down the road, things start to turn. It's the same thing when you're a white belt. If you walk into any martial arts school ever, when you first get there, you're going to have some type of an introductory lesson, some type of explanation about how this works. You're going to learn maybe about the rules here, but you're being indoctrinated at a very starting point. If you started there, that's different than seeing it down the road 10 years. You're not going to know that you're being manipulated. You're going to learn maybe a jab. Maybe you learn a front kick. Maybe you learn a block. Maybe you learn a takedown. It's all going to be the same no matter where you go. You're going to learn something extremely basic. They don't teach you no-touch knockouts when you first get there.
Right.
Like, I have to manipulate you over a period of time to get you there. And of course, that happens with little subtle nuance of somebody who is a professional con artist.
Kind of like freedom, inch at a time.
Hey, you could take it away or you could give it, Right? So that's funny enough. Freedom in terms of how that works is like you take it away an inch at a time, but it's always an explosion to get it back. It's never just like, we're going to take it back slowly. Like, no, we have to do something drastic, that kind of thing.
It's weird. It's a very it's a very dark conversation, and you're very passionate, and so you present it in a way that's not depressing. It stimulates thought. So that's a great quality, because you're describing almost like the beginning. When I made the comment, hey, I noticed, when I went to Instagram, because I didn't have time, this had more likes and more comments. Then I was like, holy shit, notice what people need or want or what they're responding to. And if you look at that 30,000 foot view, is like there are things that work in life and things that don't. The cons do that. It's interesting. You went by it really fast, but I want to share it with the audience here. A lot of things can follow, I'm friends with a lot of amazing warriors who fought for this nation. And you could say that the MO and standard operating procedure of bringing somebody in for initial military, training, and then bringing them all the way up through selection to be in some elite, counter-terror group, is the same thing as bringing somebody through a martial arts school. Or whoever we are, have figured out how to take somebody and turn them into a machine, right? And so there was a word that you went by really quick, but I want to bring it back to everyone just to marinate a little bit on it, and it's intent. If I know what I'm signing up for and the intent is clear, well, that's on us. That's our relationship. But if the intent is hidden, and certainly for all intents and purposes, pardon the use of the word intent there, it's nefarious, it's manipulative, it's deceptive, it's dark, then it's fucked up. Is there, I want to get to your book, and I want to get to the background of the book, but I want to ask you with respect to the martial art world, because some people listening to this might be going like, fuck, like holy shit, like every school is run like some sort of religious type thing. What's interesting, and I don't say this to pat myself on the back or shine a spotlight or whatever, but when I started teaching in 1980, on my door, and people didn't like this, on my door to the school, it said no rituals, no uniforms, no nonsense, and there were no belts. You trained in sweatpants or shorts. There were levels, and I would tell people, look, if you're here for self-defense, there's no level of self-defense. Like anybody can beat you up. Like you can get sucker punched, you can get stabbed, you can get shot. But there's a series of things. If you understand athleticism, movement, you can't do a spinning back kick if you can't do a side kick. Inside of a spinning back kick is the skill of a side kick. So there's a baseline skill you want, and no one had to bow. I told people, hey, when we're in class, just call me coach or call me Mr. Blauer, just so we know who the instructor is, But I was very clear. I didn't like that whole thing, even at like I started teaching when I was 17, but my school I opened when I was 20. So I'm kind of like thinking back as you talk to me, like did I, of the list of 5, where was I? was I, like did I do any of so it's interesting, but there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that and before we get to your book, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, hate your fucking guts. And that you're, I'm assuming you've had multiple death threats and threats against your body or life by now.
Oh yeah. It's funny because like a lot of, I've only been confronted twice in person, and like 26 years doing this, like McDojoLife 11 years, but
Right.
26 years in the industry. And I've only been confronted twice because of McDojoLife. And both times, I think that they thought I was smaller. Like that's the only thing I can think that it is. I remember one time I was out for the martial arts super show, and I forget what hotel and casino it was in, right? But I'm walking, and I just got a cup of coffee from like this little coffee shop that was right there. And I'm walking, and the way that particular casino was, that there was almost like a slight ramp in that hallway.
Right.
And I saw a guy that I had been back and forth with online before, and that guy had threatened bodily harm against me. And I was like, oh, well, this is going to be interesting. Like, I still have to walk that way. I'm not walking anywhere else. Like, I have to go to where I need to go. I don't want to confront this guy, and I don't want a problem, especially in a business situation, but I still have to go that way. So hopefully he'll act like an adult, and I'll act like an adult. And I could, it's very interesting when you like observe people, and you start to get a feeling in your gut about what's about to happen and things like that. And I try to pay attention to that. You were talking about intuition. And I was like, I think this guy's going to confront me based off his eye contact, his posturing, his mannerisms. I'm pretty sure he's going to come confront me. And I was getting ready for him to maybe even try to become physical. And he's walking towards me, but I could see, because of the way that the ramp was, is that he looked massive when he was like down the ramp. And I probably looked really small because of the slight incline.
Right.
As we got to each other, it changed. And I was like way bigger than this dude. And his whole demeanor changed by the time we got to each other. And he was so polite. And we had such a good dialogue, like a good open conversation that people, I think, should have who disagree.
Right.
We still did not agree. And that's okay. Disagreements are fantastic. This is how we grow as individuals and humans. Like, I could disagree with somebody, and then they might say something. And if I'm open to the idea that I could be wrong, which I am, well, maybe they change my mind and I grow as a human being and I become more intelligent, or I solidify my ideologies by hearing something really fucking stupid. Like it's one or the other. So it was just like, it's very rare that people really want to confront me like that. But I have had death threats. One in London. The one in London was a legitimate threat. It was in a Taekwondo tournament. There was thousands of people there. and the person sent me a message from an anonymous account with literally just what I was wearing. That's all they sent me. And then, which is a very uneasy thing to get.
Sure, unsettling for sure.
Yeah. So I sent them a message. I was like, hey, man, you can just come up. You can talk to me, whoever you are, and blah, blah, blah. And they started explaining about a martial arts studio I had closed down because I had a pedophile in it. Long story short, that owner opened up again a second location under a different name. I found out again, got that one shut down. And, you know, in my mind, I'm doing a good thing. Like, this guy was molesting children. He should not have access to kids. That's where my head's at.
Yeah.
I thought that was not correct. Although if it wasn't, that guy could have easily sued me because that would be defamation if that wasn't true, and slander, libel, all that.
Yeah.
But that guy threatened to kill me outside that martial arts tournament. And luckily there was, there were police there. You know, most martial arts tournaments have police off duty. I walked up and I was like, hey, man, like, normally I wouldn't do this, but I was like, this guy says when I leave, he's going to kill me. So is there anything they could do? They were like, well, there's not really much we could do, but what we can do is walk you to your car whenever it comes time. And nothing happened. But to be in areas like that often, where there are thousands of people around you, and all I do is make enemies.
Sure.
The only people that like me are people who like what I do. That's all there is to it. So every day that goes by, there could be like 10 more people or 100 people in a school that hate me. You know, like, you don't usually just call out the cult leader. Usually when you call out the cult leader, they're not usually the ones that contact me. It's the followers, because they're so devout and they put this person on such a high pedestal that they feel the need to defend them through any means necessary, and sometimes violence. And so that's unnerving, but I don't give a shit. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. You can harass me all you want. I'm going to keep doing it. So you can blow me if you're out there and you decide you want to try to harass me, because I'm going to keep doing it. You're not going to stop me. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, dude. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Look, I've been a martial artist my whole life, pretty much. You know, my first martial art was wrestling when I was, started when I was 7 years old. Didn't know that, back then you didn't know wrestling was like a martial art in terms of like foundational.
Yeah.
But I've traveled the world because of martial arts. I've got lifelong friends because of martial arts. I've made money because of martial arts. I've helped people because of martial arts. I just got a letter today from a guy, military guy, that said our training saved his life during an ambush, blah, blah, blah. But I've also at the same time never met a weirder group of people, right? Then it's this, like, you'll be places and you're like, oh my God, it's just, and maybe it's just, maybe if you and I were hairdressers, we'd say the same thing. Like, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like half of the world is insane. I don't know. I don't know.
I had a guy who, his name was Tom Kelly, and he was on I was on an international martial arts team called Team Full Circle.
Okay.
I did that for about 2 years, and Tom Kelly was the gentleman who was the sponsor of that team. And he was like a good old boy. He actually, his company, Tom Kelly Construction, actually built all the Fuddruckers. He had the Fuddruckers contract, and he was very well to do. And I taught his daughter, and his daughter wanted to be on a team. And he decided, well, if you're going to be on a team, we're going to do it right. So he just made one. And he put a lot of money, time, energy, and effort. And I'll always respect that man, because he was a very direct human being. There was no lying in him. If he didn't mean something, he didn't say it. He's somebody I would look up to in terms of how he holds himself.
Right.
And Tom Kelly was one of those dudes that, he didn't like, martial arts was a thing his daughter liked. He wasn't in it, but he was a part of his daughter's life. So he wanted to learn about it. And he had an observation one time, and he said, martial arts is literally just made of a bunch of nerds. And when he said it, he didn't say it with malice. He said it as an observation. And if you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because like, we join because we want to learn this specific skill. Why do you want to learn a skill? Well, it's because you can't do it. I'm not like a Rembrandt and go, you know what I really need right now? I just need some painting classes, You don't do that. If you already feel confident in a skill or an area, you don't go do that. I know how to swim, so I don't go take swimming lessons. I know how to swim. I'm not going to take that class. I know how to drive. I don't take driving courses unless I get a ticket. Those are the things. So a lot of people who join martial arts, not everyone, but a lot of people who join martial arts because they want that, all the supplemental things that come with it. They want that confidence, or they want to feel safe, or they want to feel like they can handle themselves in a situation. The ones who don't join are the ones who already feel confident in those areas. So it's really made up of a lot of people who started off not feeling that way.
Right.
And I think the cult part kind of comes in when you get someone very similar to the lottery. You know, most people who win the lottery, they piss the money away.
Right.
Because they've never had that much money in their life. So they don't know what it's like to respect that. It's new to them. Well, confidence can be the same way. It could be a very terrifying thing, because you can have none of it, and then all of a sudden you have people calling you master who give you all the respect in the world, whether you deserve it or not. And then now your confidence goes from nothing to through the roof, and that can get to a lot of people's heads.
Yeah.
And I you know, so I think that there's something to be said about like the type of people in martial arts. I think that goes along with it.
It's interesting because it's a lot of people afraid of violence, so they get good at fake violence, and then that feeding of the ego, and that's huge. I mean, I once was doing a seminar somewhere, and I got picked up at the airport by the guy that was hosting, and he had two of his instructors, and he introduced them to me, and we're having lunch, and then at one point I said, well, okay, cool, finished lunch. I said, I'm gonna hit the can. He said, me too. And the other two guys got up and walked us to the bathroom, and I was like, what the fuck is this, right? And I'm talking to myself, and then they stood on either side of the door like fucking Royal Guard security while we went in the bathroom to make sure like no one else could come in. And I was like, holy shit. The conversation was normal with whoever the master was. I mean, I just knew him as whatever his first name was. But it's just so weird. Like, dude, you would train these guys that were maybe 35-year-old grown men to, if I got up to go to the bathroom, you followed me in and make sure I was safe while I was taking a leak. I was like, it was bizarre. And,
well, at least they weren't trying to hold or wipe, you know, like that would be like
I was a little disappointed that we didn't.
That would have been service. Like,
yeah,
thanks, guys. Like, I usually do this myself, but
it's just bizarre. Let's shift gears to the book, but on a high note, what can we also say? It didn't come out, but like the way I wanted to. Some of the greatest things that I've experienced because of martial arts and martial artists and people wanting to learn. So there are a lot of really great people out there, folks. You just need to do your research. I get asked by, like parents or people who get to, know and then trust me, and they go, hey, I live here. I can't get to your thing. I don't have school anymore, but where should I go? And I say, listen, you got to go and watch some classes, and you got to watch the kids, and you got to watch the interaction, and you got to maybe even talk to some people. And if you're in an environment where the management doesn't allow that, or there's something weird going on, like that's not the place. That's like right away. That's the pre-contact cue. You don't need to wait for the sucker punch. It's like get the hell out of there. So I wanted to ask you like two things. It is an interesting thing, because I don't want people to leave this call going, well, I was going to get into martial arts, but fuck that, no. And I ask this to everybody. Let me ask this to you. Have you ever been betrayed in a relationship?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. You ever been betrayed in business?
Yes.
Okay. So I've asked this like for the last 13 years when I do my business classes, and I ask people that. I go, at some point after, like, betrayal sometimes never goes away, like in like some element of it. But initially it's like, holy fuck, I don't believe that happened to me. You go into complete denial, and then finally the dust settles. And I asked everybody this, so I'm asking you this. Did you say anything like, when the dust settled and you finally realized what had happened, either a personal relationship, friendship, romantic, or a business relationship, did you ever say something like, you know what? I fucking knew that was going to happen. Any type of sentence like that.
Yeah, usually that happens immediately when it happens. Like I knew that was like that happens with me just doing stupid stuff too. I'll just be doing something like like using a wrong tool for the job, and all of a sudden it doesn't work and I break something. I'm like, well, I knew that was going to happen. That's just me being dumb,
Yeah. So interesting thing in the part, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, in martial arts and self-defense, we talk about pre-contact indicators or pre-contact cues. The guy gets up, he takes off his glasses, he rolls up his sleeve, he blades, his moves, whatever they are. And when you practice just bobbing and weaving a punch or blocking a punch, you eliminate the practice of the pre-contact cues. And that means that challenges the neurobiology of defending yourself, because the education in the brain is starting later. You're starting with your hands up like you're sparring. When I think it was Mandalay Bay, where you were, because Mandalay's got that long.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right, because that was where the Super Show was. I think they did have it there, so that sounds right.
So when you were walking towards the guy and you went, "Oh fuck, that's the guy," you mentioned like your physiology changes in anticipation of danger, and then your brain starts to go, "Okay, I'm going to do this. I got an improvised weapon and coffee in the hand, ready to do that. But maybe we'll talk." And you're doing that. That is where in our system we talk about, that's the first pre-contact cue where you start. You did it already. You did it perfectly what you did, but you start battle planning there. Even to the point of, do I have an improvised weapon? If I'm going to move first, if he's going to do something like, where's an exit? Where's whatever it is. So that's all part of the true safety model is as soon as you get a pre-contact cue, you do something. So this is going back to the betrayal concept. This is a long circular crystallization here. Is I've had the same thing in relationships and business where I went, fuck, I knew that was going to happen. And I asked myself, if I knew it was going to happen, why did I let it happen? There's something in our psyche that overrides our initial intuition, where we go, like we're so romantic about doing a deal. We were talking about some of your business dealings, which we won't go into before we logged in, where maybe 15 years ago, you'd have done the deal because you gotten excited about the offer. Where now it's like, no, I've been to too many rodeos. I'm not giving up this for that. And now that initial, like that intuition becomes that blend of intelligence. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to sit on it. And so folks, if you're still listening to this story, when you go to a school or any relationship, lean into your intuition first. I got a good feeling about this place. Did you know this? Every victim of violence who has lived to tell the tale, and I've interviewed tons of victims of violence for my research. In every book I've read, every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the attack. So there's a lot of weird black box statistics that we get a bad feeling about something first, and then if the con is good or the manipulation is good, we get sucked in, and our cognitive dissonance or our romantic, I just want this to be okay. I really want to do this, so I'm not going to pay attention to that. Oh, I thought he was a nice guy. So folks, if you're listening, lean into your intuition. There's no downside to that. And I wanted to ask you, because I do want to talk about the book, is there anything, you listed the 5 things. We've kind of had a heavy conversation about what's wrong with the martial arts. Let's flip that, because obviously a lot of your success is because of martial arts as well. And a lot of your life's mission, is because of martial arts.
Well, the goal, the mission statement of what I'm doing is keeping martial arts legitimate. That's the whole purpose. Now, what is legitimate is different to individuals. Like, for instance, let's say you're Taylor Lautner and you start off in sport karate, and then your whole aspiration is to become an actor. Then you want to move on. Maybe you do stunt work in some capacity. That's your goal, right? Well, if you did that, you never wanted the goal of being able to fight people. Right. Who cares if you can't fight? That's my opinion. I think that if that's your goal, or let's say hypothetically, if you wanted to go to cardio kickboxing and they're honest with you and they say, hey man, you're not going to be a great kickboxer. You're going to learn some basic techniques so you don't hurt yourself, so you can hit the bag properly. And you'll probably lose a lot of weight because there's a lot of exercise here. You get a gastric bypass, you lose the extra weight. And now guess what? You're healthy and you can live longer. But you still can't fight your way out of a paper bag. Who cares? Good for you. That's awesome. You met your goal. I think that martial arts is fantastic. I think the only problem when people fall short in martial arts, really the only problem, is people don't set themselves goals, real tangible goals.
Right.
That looks cool. I want to do that. All right. Well, how do you know what you're trying to get from them and this exchange of money for service if you don't even know what you want out of it? Because then you're leaving it in their hands. That's when you get manipulated. If you have a clear goal and you walk in and you say, you know what, I just want to be here. I want to learn a little bit about the art. A friend of mine is here. He does Aikido. This is an Aikido school. So I'm going to join here because, in all honesty, I really just want to be here to hang out with my friend and maybe learn a little bit about this art. The moment you signed up, you accomplish your goal. So now it's time to set a new one.
Right.
And if you don't do that, it'll start to show why dropout rates are so high in martial arts. I mean, there are CRM systems, Zen Planner, Perfect Mind, Mind Body, Rainmaker, the list goes on, right? They keep statistics for schools. And one of the interesting ones is that 75% of people who join martial arts never compete. So that means that the majority of people have no real want to pressure test what they're doing.
Right.
So that's not why they're there. But the dropout rate is between the averages of 8 months to a year and a half, somewhere in there. Why do people drop out so quickly? Well, my personal theory is that they don't actually set themselves goals that they can attain and reach. So I think martial arts is amazing. It does beautiful things for people. It helps you out and gives you an outlet for so many things, not just fighting people. But you have to set those goals. And if you don't keep doing it, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Interesting. I love it. I love it. Okay, let's do a quick pivot to the book. Tell us about just tell us about the book. It's a great title.
Yeah, it's literally about those things. So Sensei's Bars and Scars is about what got me into martial arts, which was being severely bullied and beaten in school quite a bit. There was an incident that happened when I was I was 12 years old that changed my life, got me down the path of martial arts. So I talk about that story of getting jumped and stabbed and beaten in front of teachers. Teachers stood there, did absolutely nothing about it for a 5-minute beating.
How old are you?
12.
Okay.
Technically 11. I got it as a birthday present from my mom. It was she paid in full for an entire year of martial arts as a birthday present.
As a result of that?
Yes.
Okay.
So very cool on my mom to take a stab at that because, I was born with a cleft lip and palate. So she was always worried that if I got hit in the face, that it would mess up my surgeries, which is a legitimate issue. Sure. So she put me in the one thing guaranteed to get me punched in the face. I started competing literally a month after I started training because my personal goal was I wanted to know if this was effective. I wanted to know if what I'm doing will apply and stack up in some type of a situation where another person is trying to harm me. And boxing has a rule set, and it allows me to play with that while having a safety net, like a referee. So after that, I started doing martial arts, and the whole story is about me fighting in a bar called Plush when I was 15. So my instructor was the promoter at that particular nightclub, and we did what was called patron boxing. And this is now not legal anymore. You actually can't really do this anymore. Most things need to be sanctioned in a one way or another. But basically, they'd set up a boxing ring in the middle of a nightclub, and they would let anybody box who wanted to box. You'd sign up the night up. In the middle of this crowded, rowdy nightclub, we did 2-on-2 fights. I talk about that in there. We did 1-on-3 fights. We did what they call Thunderdome rules, which was the fight didn't end until someone got knocked out or until someone quit. It was a rowdy place, but that was my teenage years, was living pretty much fighting in this bar. And so there's a lot of stories about that, multiple concussions that I got from those. Luckily, I can remember some of the stories. And then my relationship with my instructor at the time, his name's Master Lee Barden. And he was a good mentor for me. Also, he taught me a lot of what not to do. So the book is titled Sensei's Bars and Scars because I'm in a bar a lot of times. If I talk a lot about my instructors, and I have many, many, many scars, and a lot of those are talked about in this book.
And in the is there a what's the ultimate message? Is it more anecdotal, like the history of you, or is there like a message that you're trying to share?
In my opinion, this is just me. Everybody might be different. I think that good music, good art, good film I think that what makes them good is everyone can take something else away that's personal to them from whatever it is. And I hope that that's what people do out of this book. There's a lot of talk about, like, there were some things in there that my instructor did that I didn't agree with. I mean, I saw my instructor set himself on fire in that nightclub. Like, we're talking like a 20-foot ball of flame.
As part of the show?
Yeah, we were doing a martial arts demonstration in the middle of the ring as like a halftime thing that we would do at one of these bars that we would do these patron boxing in. And he set himself on fire. It was actually like, I have video of that as well, which is also a part of the book, which is like there's photo proof of everything. And one of those photos is him in a ball of flame. But I think that everybody will take something else different. I mean, there's a lot about my relationship with my mom. Like, how could a mom, let me go to this nightclub as a teenage kid on Sundays when I had to go to school on Mondays? And I'd be out till like 3, 4 in the morning and then go right to class after that. Cause I think our first period bell was like 7 a.m. So, but there's a lot of like, well, yeah, like she did allow me to do that, which allowed me to go down the path of what I do now. If she didn't let me do that, then I would not have been able to get thousands of dollars back for people who were ripped off by companies in the martial arts industry, help rape victims be able to work their way through this, or expose the people who did it, help stop pedophiles. Like, my mom set me on a path of trust, and she gave me that trust because I was around people she trusted. Even though it was a rowdy environment, she let me pursue my passion of martial arts, and I respect the fuck out of her for that.
Sure.
And is she a perfect? Absolutely not. No one is. My instructor showed me so many things like about martial arts and how to really love martial arts. Best instructor, honestly, I have ever seen. Still to this day, I've never seen anyone teach a class as good as him. But he did a lot of shit that I don't agree with. So it's okay to be flawed. It's okay to have a flawed life. We all will. It's not going to be perfect for you, but it is what you make it. And if you do have something happen to you, no matter if it's good or bad, if you don't learn from it, then it's a wasted moment in your life. Everything you do, every conversation, every interaction, every good, every bad, every indifferent makes you who you are. And it's okay to be that thing. And if you don't want to be, you don't have to be. But I was fortunate enough to have a lot of good mentors to teach me what to do and what not to do. And maybe people learn from my mistakes, and maybe people learn from the things that they taught me.
Love it. I love it. Here's the book, folks, again. And this is available Amazon.
On Amazon. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. By the way, Lewis Martin was my co-author, and I am very particular about the way things are worded and the way I like things. So we butted heads quite a bit, but I give Louis credit. He actually wrote, I found out about Louis because he wrote a book called The True Believers, which was about him being in a martial arts cult. And it's fascinating. That's how I got to know Louis. And then he wrote Tom DeBlass's book, which is a fantastic book. If no one's had a chance to read that, please do. And then after that, I was like, hey, man, like, I kind of want to write a book. Would you do that? And he was like, absolutely. And I know that I'm hard to work with, but I get so many compliments because of the way that Louis put this together. So I am so grateful for him and his work. And I truly hope other people check out the rest of his work, not just this one. But come on, get this one.
Nice. Yeah. No, some like fascinating stuff in there. It's interesting too, because a lot of people is really, in the beginning, there were a couple of comments going, where the heck is it? Oh shit. Just people saying, like, I knew who you were, but I didn't know your name until now. Here, only learned his name now, but love his work, like stuff like that. We had a few comments like that in the beginning. So check out the book. It's interesting to me because I didn't, like, when I was reading over the research that you provided and the stuff that Elisa put together for the show, like, I just know you, and I've been around, I just know you from the McDojoLife, and it's like you've got a serious background, and you've got like, your mission, man, is very fucking serious, and people need to know that, because you can, if you just casually check in on the McDojo feed, it's got this, cartoony element of it, of like, hey, like, are we just making fun of people who are just clearly nuts? But there's a whole side to your work that's incredibly important.
Well, I'm glad you said that. There's something we didn't mention. I just wanted to throw in
Please.
there real fast. Is me and Zen Planner got together and we partnered up. I presented this idea with them and they loved it, so they helped tremendously. We built McDojoLife.com, and McDojoLife.com, as of right now, the major thing that it does is it has one of the only searchable like websites where you can look up your instructor to find out if that person has done anything nefarious that has made the news. So if that person has molested a child, if that person has defrauded somebody, if that person has been in jail for A, B, and C, you can go on that website. And if you have proof that someone has done something and they're not on the list, you can send that in. I'll take the time to research to make sure that it's accurate, and I will add them to that list. So it's an ongoing registry of people who have done evil things in the industry. So one thing I noticed is that you can't probably get all martial artists to agree on things.
Yeah.
The only thing you can get them to agree on is the things they don't like. And it's funny because that's why that list is the way that list is. It's not all the good things, it's all the bad things, because for some reason you can get a group of martial artists to not agree on the proper form of a jab, but then you can get them together and they can all agree that you shouldn't molest kids. So like, we can all agree there. So if that's the case, why not start there as a base of getting us all collectively, no matter what art you're in, to agree on these things?
Right.
Then we can build our industry. I'll be in SHOT Show in 2 weeks. SHOT Show in Las Vegas.
I'll be there too. So let's connect.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We grab some lunch or something, man.
Yeah.
But while I'm at SHOT Show, it's a fascinating thing because SHOT Show is massive. It is like a week-long thing. Range Day is the best thing in the whole world. But SHOT Show, you're there for like Monday all the way to like Friday, I think. I think it starts Tuesday and goes. But when you go, they tell you you're not going to be able to stop and talk to everyone. It's impossible. Like I tried. Like I tested it. I think it took me like 3 hours to get like 5 booths down if you're really engaging in conversation. So then it hit me when I was at the Super Show, which, by the way, the Super Show is no longer the Super Show. It's now something else. It's like a part of something else. So our industry doesn't really have that anymore, that real convention. Right. So, but what scared me is that martial arts has been around longer than firearms. So this firearms only, by the way, just for people who are in the industry event, people with FFLs and firearm and distributors and things like that, that thing's massive. It's huge, massive event. Our Super Show, you could walk around that thing in probably like an hour, talk to everybody, have a couple conversations, and then everything else is seminars. So what killed me on the inside was that we as martial artists could not get our petty shit out of the way to make something that we can all enjoy, because so many people are so stuck on their art, their style, their instructor, their lineage. We need to cut that shit out. If we're going to continue to grow, we need to start looking at things in terms of right and wrong. And it's okay if people do martial arts for a different reason than I do martial arts. It's okay to do it for fun. It's okay to do it casually. It's okay to be a stunt performer. It's okay to do any of those things as long as you're honest. And I think that if we can all get on that page, maybe one day we have something like that. And maybe we can grow as an industry instead of constantly backbiting and stabbing each other all the time. We can't grow if we do that.
I agree. It's interesting. You made me remember something I'd wanted to ask you before. If you go in the yellow pages, that doesn't exist anymore, but you remember like the classic yellow pages, every single martial arts school listed, regardless of what they did, as self-defense as one of the things they offered. Right. And so, so it didn't matter if it was, kickboxing or Thai boxing or Taibo or cardio, there was always like self-defense. That's that disingenuous, hey, but if you ask any martial arts instructor, any black belt in any system anywhere, if their art can be used in self-defense, everyone's going to say yes. And that's the tricky part of it, because I don't think people really understand what goes on, like emotionally, psychologically, and physically, in a truly horrific, asocial, violent encounter. And it's very different than sparring, and it's very different than competition. And there are assets and experiences you can derive during your training. But it's like flag football and tackle football kind of look the same. But if you play flag football and you get really good, and then you decide you're going to play, against some NFL guys, you're going to get crushed, right? Like the intensity of that is so different, even though you're still running and catching and throwing and stuff like that. So that's a tricky thing. And it goes back to your intent and that self-awareness of like, what are you doing? If you go, something fascinates me about martial arts. I love the movement. I love the challenge. I love having belts and doing that stuff. I'm a pacifist. I don't want to fight, but I'd rather do this than aerobics.
Yeah. I've always called myself a violent pacifist. Like, I don't want to fight you, but I can. Like, we could make that happen, I guess.
Yeah. It's a good line. Okay. This has been fascinating, man. And I learned a lot about you that I wouldn't have if we hadn't had this conversation. And I'm hoping that more people, because I know a lot of my audience obviously follows your show and follows the Instagram page. At least pop up the Instagram page for any weirdos on our list.
Thank you.
But they all do. But I don't think they realize that you're a serious human trying to do like really serious stuff. Because how would you know that if they didn't listen to you?
I try to take the time to I think over the years it's evolved. And I think that talking about goal setting earlier, what I started off to do has changed over time. And I think that naturally has to. Once you reach a goal, I don't just settle. Like, oh, well, I did that thing. Well, I guess I'm done. Like, no, it's time to set a new goal. It's the only way to get up a ladder is one rung at a time. You set a goal, you grab it, you keep moving until you reach wherever you're trying to get. And then now once you get there, where do you go? Another ladder, and you keep doing that. But ultimately, the goal here is truly to help keep martial arts legitimate. It's just to get everyone on the same page. I think once we can start doing that and we can get rid of some of those old school petty arguments, maybe we can start coming together to help our students, because it's not about us. The moment we decided to coach people, it was about them. It's about making our students better at whatever their particular goals are. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about what I do. And if anybody wants to check it out, definitely check out McDojoLife on any social medias. If you want to learn about what it's like to be a teenager going through high school fighting in nightclub bars, Sensei Bars and Scars, it's on Amazon. If you like it, please drop a review. It's really appreciated. And then if you're curious and you're like, man, I think I know a guy who I remember did something evil in martial arts or evil and as a martial arts instructor, you can go to McDojoLife.com, search their name in the registry, see if their name pops up. And if it doesn't, send me proof. If you send me proof that they've done something nefarious, like a police report or a news article, things like that, I'll add them to the registry. Because again, the goal is to get everybody on the same page. And then we can start having fun with it. Then we can start enjoying like, hey, go to this guy's seminar because you want to learn Aikido. Who cares? Is that what you want to do? Enjoy. I'm not ever going to put someone on blast because they're not very good. I'm not ever going to put someone on blast who's being honest. I'm just going to make sure that people out there who are doing things like lying to their students or taking advantage of them, they're the ones that are going to be the target always.
That's the link over there, guys, McDojoLife.com. And that's the registry list. Really, really important. I know that as a father of 3, if I was sending my kids to a school, I would want to know, if the instructor or this school had some sort of background that I don't want to put my kids at risk at, or me at risk at. Obviously, there's going to be a whole side of people about, hey, and like rehabilitation and second chances and all that.
Hey,
but
I'm not here to tell people what to do.
Right.
My only job is to give them the information and they can make their own informed decisions. And I'll give you an example of anybody out there who's like, well, there's a sex offender registry. It's not how this works. If you go and look up a gentleman, and I did a story about him, I have no problem talking about the story I did. His name's David Arnbeck. David Arnbeck, if in all intents and purposes, you would think is a legitimate martial artist. He was under Hickson Gracie, a 3rd-degree black belt, under Hickson Gracie at that, a very reputable lineage.
Sure.
In Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is, definitely a hot topic martial art right now in terms of MMA and how popular that's been since '93. But if you look at that on the outside, everything looks on the up and up, not on the sex offender registry. He molested a 15-year-old girl, 15 or 16, in his home. But the type of plea deal that he took allowed him not to be on the sex offender registry. And up till last year, he owned 3 martial arts schools. Now he just owns 2. I'm not here to tell you whether or not to train with this man. What I am here to tell you is that happened. And you can make your own decision as a consumer about what you're going to do with that information. But you should know. And again, if you have kids, I think you would want to know.
Right. That's really the point. Robert, I think that's a great place to stop. Guys, you got all the links there. Please, share this important stuff. It's not a comfortable conversation. A lot of it, although it was entertaining, it's not comfortable. But there is a dark side to civilization. Always has been, and it's one of the reasons why you're a cop or firefighter or public safety on our list. Training with us, because that evil exists. There are bad people out there. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to you. But it's neat to uncover or shine a light on areas of our life where you just assume like this is a safe place to go. It's a martial arts school where you're learning about honor and trust and integrity and you're going, wait a minute. But really what it comes down to is people will do people things. And trust your intuition, get your research, and stay safe. Robert, hang up in the back for a minute. I'm going to log off. And folks, thank you all for sharing your afternoon with us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.